The most important and toughest position group to really kind of figure out, it's the defensive line, where you're going to see it's going to be inevitable that the Cardinals are going to cut a player from this position group and it's going to be picked up by one of the other 31 teams. The Arizona Cardinals kick off the preseason on Saturday, but it's never too early to figure out what the 53-man roster is going to look like at the end of the preseason. Some tough cups are going to come for the Cardinals. We're going to see probably Monty Ossenfort say goodbye to some draft picks for the first time. Bo, Brack, Johnny, and Venerable, hit that like button. Subscribe to PHNX Sports. And Johnny, so we start with the offensive side of the football. Not much has changed. You said earlier this week you thought you could predict the offense pretty much today.
Yeah, I think, again, this is something where the offense has more to prove because they're doubling down on the same players from years prior, right? And that means I think we'll see a lot of consistency. One area that has changed, Clayton Tune out, Jacoby Brissett in. The Cardinals are going to keep two quarterbacks again. That means Tune, third-year player, former fifth-round pick, is cut, and I think eventually will end up on the practice squad. I just can't see the Cardinals, given where they need depth at other positions, carrying three quarterbacks on the active roster. You can always elevate Tune from the practice squad on game day. That's a rule implemented by the NFL. And again, going through, halfback group's going to look exactly like last year. Connor, Benson, DeMercado, DJ Dallas, Michael Carter, I don't expect to be back on the active roster. Same tight end, McBride, Higgins, Ryman, Travis Vokalek. It's the same thing as a year ago. Again, outside of some, outside of some depth pieces, this team offensively is largely unchanged.
Yeah, I mean, like Vokalek, there might be some roster gymnastics that you might be able to do. I don't think there's going to be like a hot market for, the big tight end who was on the active roster for last season, but they like their depth at that position. Does he get overtaken by Oscar Cardenas, who's been interesting in training camp? The wide receiver position, similar to this, where there's not much change. Zach Pascal exits, but we see the Cardinals carrying at least six: Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, Greg Dortch, Xavier Weaver, the second-year player who we think will see maybe an increased role. And then I think we talk about Pascal, who is your best run-blocking wide receiver. I think Semi Fioco can crack this roster in that spot.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, this group, again, is only changed by the hierarchy of receivers, where we feel like Zay Jones is going to get more of the bulk load from Greg Dortch in years prior. And then you've got somebody like Xavier Weaver, who was last year on the active roster, and can he have an expanded role this year? Again, like for the Arizona Cardinals, who don't throw the ball a lot to wide receivers, I think unless you're a Marvin Harrison Jr. or Michael Wilson, it could be tough sledding. But again, injuries happen. So again, that group, to me, not a lot of juice that needs to be discussed, Bo.
Injuries do happen. An injury happened on the offensive line. Looks like John Gaines is dealing with a thumb injury. We'll see if that lingers into the regular season. Hasn't practiced the last week. Does he end up on IR? Do they need to add somebody to the 9 offensive linemen that we believe they're going to keep? Of course, you got the 5 starters: Paris Johnson Jr., Evan Brown, Yelda Froholt. You've got Isaiah Adams and Jonah Williams, along with your backup swing tackle, Calvin Beachum. We think a guy like Christian Jones continues to stay on the roster and develop. You got Royce Newman, who they added. And I think if Gaines isn't ready to start and Will Hernandez isn't going to be ready to start, even though he's going to be, in the organization, I think a guy like Nick Leverett, he's somebody that has center versatility that you're going to need depth there in case something happens to Fro.
Yeah, I mean, Will Hernandez is the talk of this group right now. They bring him back on a 1-year deal, and he's somebody that you're going to put on the PUP list and kind of wait and see. But this group, in the meantime, I mean, Kelvin Beacham's they're probably certainly the most experienced offensive lineman of note behind the big 5, which, again, largely unchanged outside of Will Hernandez at the end of last year. John Gaines just feels like it's just not going to happen in terms of him ever elevating. I could be wrong, into a starter. Christian Jones, we've got him penciled in right now. Could that change with a waiver claim, Bo, over the course of the next month or so? And then Josh Fryer, a name to watch in terms of a developmental guy on the practice squad.
Let's get to the most important and toughest position group to really kind of figure out. It's the defensive line, where you're going to see it's going to be inevitable that the Cardinals are going to cut a player from this position group, and it's going to be picked up by one of the other 31 teams. And you're going to see him probably potentially start elsewhere. D-line, Calais Campbell, Dalvin Tomlinson, Darius Robinson, and if Walter Nolan is back healthy enough, he's going to be on the active roster to start. And then you start to look at Dante Stills, you're 5 deep. We've got them carrying 6 right now, depending on the health of Nolan, and LJ Collier cracking that. If we get a 7th, we talked about it. We like, of course, the undrafted rookie free agent out of Tennessee.
Yeah, the recording of this video on demand here at PHNX Sports, I think Bilal Nichols and Justin Jones are gone. I think the Cardinals eat the dead money. They're not in the business of cutting good football players, as Jonathan Gannon mentioned, until we see otherwise. If Justin Jones turns it around, he practices, he dominates, has good tape to put on, for the coaching staff and the GM against the Broncos and the Chiefs, okay, then I'll sit here and say, like, he's earned it, he's made the team. But as we've outlined many days on our show, we're at camp, you're at camp every day. It's like name one splash play, one winning rep. And that might sound harsh, but again, this team's in the business of playing the best players. He is not one of their 6 best defensive tackles right now.
Yeah, so Elijah Simmons could make it. We'd love to see him practice squad, get a little bit more seasoning at the pro level, but plays and fills a role potentially at nose if behind Dalvin Tomlinson. The outside linebacker pass rush unit, this is how we see it. 5 guys right now make it. We've got BJ Ojulari, not yet ready. He hasn't appeared in training camp, continues to work his way back from that injury. Here's your 5. Josh Sweat, Zaven Collins, Baron Browning, Jordan Birch, and XT Xavier Thomas. I think once Ojulari is ready, Johnny, I think XT goes to the practice squad.
Yep. BJ Ojulari is going to be ready at some point. I would probably pen his return sometime in October. So Xavier Thomas, can he do enough to stick around? Is Xavier Thomas is a player that the Cardinals potentially could move off of in the form of a trade? They have a surplus at several of these positions where you feel like, okay, we like some players from day 3 of the draft the last couple of years, but there's just not a role for them in terms of the depth on our team. Could we get a 6th rounder back? Could we get a rotational offensive lineman back? So Xavier Thomas looks good too in practice. It's going to be unfortunate. Ojulari's not even practicing yet. So if I'm Xavier Thomas, I'm playing with my hair on fire until otherwise.
Off-ball linebacker, it's been kind of a changeover at that position. Outside of the Mike linebacker, Mac Wilson Sr., he steadies the waters there. But an interesting position, Johnny, as you pointed out. They carried 3 for the bulk of last season. We've got him taking 4 here.
Yeah. Listen, I think it could sway back to 3 at some point, but just the 4 you guys know. Mac Wilson Sr. is probably up here, firmly going to get the bulk load of the work. And then there's a drop-off because they haven't been running a lot of multiple off-ball sets. They've been, frankly, deferring more to safeties and nickel corners. Mac Wilson Sr., Akeem Davis-Gaither, Cody Simon, and Owen Pappo. The most vulnerable, of course, being Pappo, a 5th rounder a couple of years ago. But he's been starting in certain instances. I think a lot of this is going to be predicated on preseason. I think Mac Wilson Sr. is going to play sparingly. And then those 3 other players, I think, are going to fill out the rest of these quarters in pivotal matchups. And again, who performs, who's gap, assignment correct, who scheme assignment correct, and who's missing tackles in the open field. I do think this is a battle that could come down to preseason reps.
Let's take a look at the defensive back room. We've got them carrying 6. Now, Starling Thomas was going to firmly be a part of this group, but unfortunately tears his ACL. Now is how we see it. Garrett Williams, of course, going to be your primary slot corner. Max Melton, your 2nd-year player. How about Will Johnson, the rookie, and get the nod outside corner, not in base. And then you got Denzel Burke, Keitrell Clark, who I think is the guy that benefited from the injury. Hate to say it that way, but I think he makes this roster because of the injury to Thomas. And then you got Elijah Jones. You're not going to give up on a 3rd-round pick just because he seems like he's kind of far behind at this point and going into his 2nd season.
Darren Hall, sorry. It's unfortunate. He's a good special teamer. He's got some size to him, but Keitrell Clark sticking around because, Bo, you and I were pretty consistent. He probably wasn't going to make the team. He wasn't if Starling Thomas was here. Elijah Jones has the furthest to go in terms of development. He missed all of last year. So, again, that's something to keep an eye on maybe for next offseason. But like the big 4, Garrett Williams, Max Melton, Will Johnson, I think Denzel Burke, who's had a great camp, kind of the unsung hero of this draft class that has so many headliners. Somebody who played a ton of quality college football in the Big Ten for Ohio State can come in and not embarrass himself. His technique is good. I mean, nobody's Will Johnson right now in that position group. We're grading on a curve with the rest of this rookie class as a result.
Wrapping it up, at least the position players at safety, Buddha, JT, Jalen Thompson, Rabbit, Taylor Damerson, and then the special teams ace, Joey Blunt, with Keaton Crawford, the 7th-round pick, on the bubble, but we're not having the Cardinals carry him just yet. Maybe they can slide him through to the practice squad.
Yeah, I think it's a conversation for next year. Like, if Jalen's gone, if Joey Blunt's gone, does Keaton Crawford then elevate to a full-time special teamer? Or because of injury this year, can they bring him back? I don't think he's claimed. Again, we can see what happens in the preseason. I think Taylor Demerson's going to play a lot these next couple of weeks to continue to show his ability. But again, this is a position group that, it's loaded this year. So again, check back in 2026 to see if there's an opportunity for some younger guys.
Specialists, you know them. You all know them. Chad Ryland, Blake Gillikin, and long snapper Aaron Brewer. Here's how we see the bubble playing out. Right now, we've got Elijah Simmons on the defensive front, Keaton Crawford, as we just mentioned, Hayden Connor, 6th-round pick out of Texas. And then you've got Owen Papo in the linebacking core. Did we miss anybody? Who's on the roster bubble? In your opinion, drop a comment, leave a like. Make sure you subscribe to PHNX Sports and don't miss live coverage Monday through Friday, 4:30, and especially on game day, pre, halftime, and post-game shows. Don't miss it here at PHNX Cardinals.